Good morning.
Quick question. Are you prepared to play? Good morning, church. Whoa, that's really loud. How are you? All right. So many good things happening. I talked about midnight mass and how it's spooky season and how I invite us to consider that with regards to our own spirit as well as with regards to trick-or-treating and stuff. I would love to have a conversation about that. I think that's an important part of our spiritual life, and I don't have any answers. I have no answers. I got questions, I got curiosity, I have no definitive answers. So if you want to have a conversation, we should talk. I want to give a giant word of thanks to the hiring committee, to Rob Thacker and Raquel Ducott and Mike Johnson and Kathy Rentz, and say thank you, because we have completed the process and made an offer to Sterling Finkbein, who has accepted. And there are a few things, I'm very excited, very, very excited. Sterling comes to us with a history of working in other congregations and of working at Ross High School. I am very excited, and now I'd like to put the brakes on, because I'm not sure that we are really ready at this point in the quarantine to have full choir all the time. So we've been having small group choir. I just got special masks for singers that are a wider cup that will help people sing more easily. So we have these, we have the small group, but there's a difference in having the small group sing and having, like, y'all know our choir is like 45 people large if everybody comes. That's bigger than some churches. That's gigantic. And they're wonderful and dedicated. And I really want to get back to it. And I'm not certain that it's time to get back to it. So I think we might start with smaller group things. And I'm excited about having Sterling here. And I promise you, as soon as we feel like it's okay, that we will go full. Are you all okay with that? Yes. Okay. We'll be cautious and keep moving forward cautiously. Walk Out of Darkness is coming up in a few weeks. Is it next week? How did it get to be next week? Can somebody please slow down the calendar? I don't know what's happening. So the Walk Out of Darkness is a suicide awareness and prevention walk. It is honestly life affirming and very, very positive and very, very good. I get a little cranky because they moved it from being the reasonable time of evening to 2 in the afternoon. So we're gonna do church and then leave and do the Walk Out of Darkness, so that it's like that we can do it. And we're going to do it anyway, even though it is at a difficult time, because it is so. Today we're going to be talking about shame, and there are things that happen in our world that we carry shame, which doesn't really do us any good. There are topics we don't talk about. For example, do you remember people whispering the word cancer? Or do you remember, like, when you couldn't talk about, like, a woman might be in the family way, but you wouldn't say the word pregnant because there was some shame associated with that, right? There's lots of ways that shame does not do us any good. There are a lot of families who are affected by suicide, impacted by suicide. There are a lot of us who struggle. Being quiet about it might feel like it helps because then we don't have to think about it, but it really doesn't help. So Nicole is here to help with signups if you want to participate. This is also a fundraiser for them. You don't have to give, please do not feel like you have to give money to participate. You can just sign up and go walk, and that is enough. So I encourage you to do that. When I get ready for sermons, not everything makes the cut. So there was a really good article that I wanted to include in today's sermon that was about, it's from Psychology Today, and the title is The Rock Bottom Myth and the Shame It Brings. And it was basically about the labeling and stuff that we do that impedes progress rather than advances progress. I'm not going to tell you anything about that article because I don't have time. So I'll just tell you that it exists and it's worth reading and it is good. I also don't really talk about shame within the congregation, but I want to encourage you to at least give a moment's thought or consideration to the way that we might unintentionally cause shame among us and maybe try to think of different ways to do that. And now I'm not going to talk about that anymore because also there's not time. There is generally a rule here at St. John's that we don't schedule things for after or for Sundays until after 2 o'clock. I have lightly bent that rule by telling Steve Malloy and the men's choir that they can do a small group, not the full men's choir, which is like a bazillion people, but their small group can come do practice between 1 and 3 on Sundays. We're not doing coffee hour in the building. I think it's okay. They said they would hide out in the basement if need be. It's small, so, and we love them. We think they are quite wonderful. Other announcements, I'm wondering, Marie, did you arrange for the rain to hold off today? You did, okay. So Marie's in charge of the weather and she's gonna help with the rain. We have this problem, folks. We want to be able to do things outside, but we are weather dependent. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that we will have lemonade outside if the weather cooperates. Does that sound reasonable? And if it does not cooperate, we will not have lemonade outside, but Nicole will still be here to sign you up. Okie dokie, artichoke. I think we are ready to start with the chalice lighting. And Robert Foley is our worship associate today. And he is going to light the chalice. And I invite you at home to join with us and in the congregation to rise in body or spirit and join in our chalice lighting and our affirmation. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Together, we care for the church and each other.
This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.
Thank you. I'd like to invite our small group of singers to come forward. This is this little hymn that we're starting with is Building Bridges. And it's a reminder that whatever life brings us, however we navigate, it still matters immensely that we find ways to bridge the distance between us.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges. between our divisions. Hallelujah to deliverance between our divisions. With all the resistance and growth after peace. With all the resistance and growth after visions. Dancing and breaking stars between our divisions. Hallelujah to deliverance between our divisions. But Lord, to resistance and growth after peace. With all the resistance and growth after visions. Then we could make such sweet harmony.
One of the ways we build bridges. One of the ways we build bridges and come together is by the sharing of joys and sorrows. I invite you now to come forward and take a stone and place it in the dish of sand. It's not an absolute requirement, but it can be easier if we come from the left and move up the right. Although we are flexible. If you have a prayer request, something you would like lifted up in prayer, please write it on a piece of paper and get it to me, and we will include it in the prayer afterwards. And if you are online and would like your joys or sorrows expressed or stone placed, please put it in the chat and someone will get that to me. All right, thank you. My friends, we have some additional joys and sorrows today. Susan Kirshner's nephew, Ezra, awaits a heart transplant at age 15. Please keep her sister's whole family in your thoughts. Robert writes, my best friend and his wife celebrate their first child, September 5th. That's exciting. And Mira Rodwin is not here today because she's sick, not seriously, but she's at home resting. I lost the whole. Kaya is one of the kids in the congregation, and she had a rough weekend with sickness, and she painted a seashell and put it in the bowl of stones. So our bowl of stones is stones and etc. And so I placed Kaya's seashell in the dish for us also. My friends, would you join me in an attitude of prayer? Holy One of blessing, we name your presence in us, among us, before us and beyond us. We come together as people in a difficult time. We are people with great joys and we are people with great sorrows. We are people who know what it is to worry about loved ones on the other side of the planet. And we are people who sometimes need patience and understanding, taking care of that which is right here at home. More than anything else, we are people who need each other. We find ourselves at a moment when there is much separation and much temptation to separate further, to retreat into our corners so that we don't have to make mistakes, so that we don't risk offending, so that we don't risk being called out or shamed, so that we don't risk. But we know in our heart of hearts, we know because everything in our experience has told us that risking is the better way, that trying and failing is infinitely preferable to not trying at all. We appeal at this hour of prayer to every other person who has ever been. We appeal for grace over judgment. We appeal for conscience that will guide and light that will forgive and a love that will not let go. Before concluding this prayer, I'd like to ask the singers to come forward and Robert to lead us in a litany of atonement. And then
for remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible. For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause. for each time that our dream has blinded us to the needs of others. For the selfishness that is us apart and alone. For falling short of the recognitions of the Spirit. For losing sight of our unity. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
As a people of faith and hope, we believe that we have the infinite power to forgive and forgive and begin and begin and love and love and love again. So may it be. Amen. Thank you, guys. All right. Y'all know there's a thing called sibling rivalry. I have an older sister. And I love her completely, and she's wonderful. And her church is doing a thing as a fundraiser, and I keep thinking, well, we could do it better because of sibling rivalry. So what they are doing is she's Persian, so she's cooking a Persian meal for 4 people. And so the item that's up for bidding is 1 meal for 4 people. And there are 4 of these units available. And she will come to your house and deliver. She lives in Pittsburgh. I'm tempted to bid. She will come to your house and deliver a meal for 4 people. And then she will go away. So it's like COVID safe. The next person who's doing this the following month is doing a fully Polish meal. So it's pierogies and paluski and all this stuff. So they are doing 4 months of 1 offering a month of 4 meals for 4 people. Are you keeping up with this? It's a lot of 4s. So what they do is they open the bidding, and then for 2 weeks, you get a chance to bid on the meals. The meals sell, she cooks and delivers. Everybody's happy, the church makes a little money. All you need to get this started is 4 people who are willing to cook 4 meals for 4, and then you are off and running. I believe that we have those people, not looking at anyone in particular, just saying. And I kind of would like to outraise her. So, so I will just put that out. If anybody's interested in this fundraiser, come see me, and maybe we can scheme together. I invite you into my sibling drama. Now, here is the other part of that. The reason that we do things like this is because we value our church and our community. We value both the talents of people who can cook and serve and organize and volunteer to get things done. And we value the time we spend together. This pandemic has clipped our wings on some things and opened up other possibilities in other ways. I invite you to give to the good work of this church, not because of all the ordinary dull things, which are always true and always important. I don't want to undersell them. But I invite you to give because the community that this church holds is truly valuable. We've got a good thing going. And I know that flu season is just starting. I know that there are some hard things coming, but I'm telling you truly, the longer vision is bright. We have good days coming ahead of us. And right now our work is to get ready for those days so that we can truly soar when the time is right. So with Peng Chang's playing, and Peng Chang, that last piece was like outstandingly beautiful. I like it when you play Billy Joel. Maybe Mozart came first? Beethoven. All right, my dears, I'm going to invite us to enjoy Peng Chang's playing, and I invite you to come forward and give as you are able. Thank you in advance for everything you do and everything you give for the church. There are two announcements. So there's a lizard in the church. It had been trying to help with sound. I was kind of trying to keep an eye on the back row, thinking it might be hanging out with you folks in the back. And then it ran up the aisle and went to the chapel. David says he thought this church welcomed everybody, and indeed we do, scales and all. So the announcement was going to be, if you're in the back in particular, just look out because there's a lizard on the loose, but the lizard found his way forward. The other announcement, I apologize, I forgot, is that the beautiful flowers today are given by Nancy Henry. And Nancy, the note I got was in honor of your niece, but is it Phil's birthday? Yeah, love Phil. All right, thank you, Nancy, and thank you all. And see, my dear friends at home, if you want the true St. John's experience, go outside today and chase a lizard. It will round out your afternoon. Robert Foley, some years ago, decided to join this church, and I bet right now he's wondering why. But he's going to share with you his membership experience. Thank you, Robert.
I never ask why. I just smile and nod because the minister is beside me. No, I love you all. Good morning, and I apologize if I wrote this down, so up here I could be looking down because I can't remember anything. Good morning. What is this thing we strive for? It's called membership. Hello, I'm Robbie Foley. I've been a member for 4 years and have attended nearly 10. To the shock of some people, I might have been a member longer because I was here so regularly for so long. But I just became a member 4 years ago. I want to start and talk about the day I signed the book. Commitment is the best way to sum up that day. Now, bear with me. It's not a typical speech of, and I was so inspired by, and I knew immediately that I wanted to join the church kind of story. That's not true. The day I signed the book to put my name in that big historical ledger was the day my best friend got committed to his wife. I was a groomsman, not a best man, so I had to make a little time for my commitment. But I knew I am one for purpose and symbolism. So on this day, my best friend decided to marry his love, and I pledged to a church. And so we both decided to dedicate ourselves to causes that we felt would change us and encourage us to grow. All on the day known as Cincinnati Day, better known as May 13th, or the area code of Cincinnati, 513. A short story of me in church. I came because I woke up early on a Sunday, bored out of my mind. See, I usually work early in the morning for my job and everything. And so waking up at 8 was known as, sleeping in. Waking up at 10, wow, that's amazing. But I decided to take a chance and come here. So me and the church in general as an institution never got along. But because my father was once a member of a Catholic church, and I remember as a small child visiting with him all the time, and he was an usher, which took great responsibility and everything, and being around people and speaking makes me very nervous. So when I decided to come to St. John's, I had to overcome that. But I just decided to show up, and the faces welcomed me and everything, and I couldn't argue any of that. So as I began showing up to church, people started whispering, why don't you belong? Why don't you belong? And I couldn't give an honest answer. I knew there was fear, but I engaged myself further. I began to attend social things outside of just the services. I went to some of the concerts that they held here at St. John's. I went to some of the fun programs that exist. And then finally, I decided to commit myself, because we all as members hold a hope for so many, and also many more carry out that same mission of hope throughout their generous deeds and or their perpetuation in daily life to equality for all peoples as well. So basically, I know that everybody here feels the love for everybody and lizards. And St. John's strives to make this community better. Now that community can be here, but we also strive to make our city better, our state better, our country, our nation, our world a better place. And those things I can commit myself to. Because we give respect to those who seem like to the world is a dark place, but we try and we hope for just a little bit of light. See, this is why I write it down. For we strive to aid in the healing of oneself by exploring different views and still explore our own here at St. John's, by seeing the connection that we all hold, seen and unseen. So I am a member today because of you, the visitor, the member, because we all hold the same thing in common, love of all people. A place where safety is for everyone and voices are always lifted. That's my St. John's Unitarian Universalist Church. Thank you.
That was great. I have a painting. So Rob wears many hats. One of them is as a visual artist. And I have a painting in my office that says love, and it's got 2 rips down either side of it. And if I remember correctly, you had been painting and the canvas was damaged. And instead of throwing away the damaged canvas or scrapping it and starting over, he leaned into the damage and mirrored it on the other side and created something new. When I talk about flexibility and adaptability and creativity, I like that painting. It works for me. All right, so I warned you at the beginning, this is like turning into pet, you know what it is. I scheduled pet blessing for later in the month and the pets rebelled and they are invading the sanctuary. We talked about our love of cats earlier. That was slightly before worship officially started. We had a lizard visit, and now I'm going to tell you about my dog, who is, no offense, Greg, the love of my life. We took our dog to the vet recently, some months ago, because he has allergies. He gets itchy, and when he gets itchy, he gets to scratching and chewing, and then he doesn't stop, and he causes problems, and that's bad, right? If you have dogs, you might know this pattern. We had him to the vet for his annual checkup, and then like 10 days later, he's torn like a hole through his fur. He's a mess. It's not good. So I call the vet and I don't get my normal doctor. I don't even know my normal veterinarian's name. I just refer to him as the cute one. They're like, what doctor do you want to see? I say the cute one, they know who it is. We have a standing, he's seen all our animals consistently since we've been here. Nice guy, he has seen this happen before. He saw Scotty for his annual checkup just 10 days before everything went south. So I call and our regular guy isn't in, so we get to see the new guy. That's okay. The new guy doesn't know us and he doesn't know that this is what Scotty does. And he was horrified. Oh, he was horrified. He said he was horrified. He said, the old guy would have looked at this damage and said, wow, Scotty, you did some serious damage in the last 10 days. We will do what we did before and get you fixed up. I'm glad we know what works. That's what our regular vet would have said. The new guy said, oh my God, what did you do to your dog? Did you take him to a pond with unusual things in it? Did he get wet and not get dried off? Did you feed him something strange? Did you ignore him for a month of Sundays? The new guy, the old guy would have said, we've got this down. We know the pattern. We know what works. The new guy says, well, we're going to have to give him everything, antibiotics and steroids and the cone of shame. At this point, I did not feel like the dog was the only one being put into the cone of shame. I felt I was joining in there. The cone of shame, you know what I mean? This is the anti-scratch thing on dogs. So you can imagine that. It's kind of like here. The cone of shame limits your mobility. When you're in it, you cannot move as freely or as flexibly as you would like. When you are in the cone of shame, your perspective is hemmed in. You can't see other ways. You can't choose to look off to this side or that side because everywhere there is shame and it's controlling what you see and it's controlling how you move in the world. It is very limiting. Am I still talking about dogs? It's dogs and people, but this is where the two divide, right? For the dog, the cone of shame helps because it stops them from doing the behavior that is causing trouble. But for people, the cone of shame hurts. It hurts because it keeps us from being adaptable and making those adjustments, like with your painting. If you had damaged the canvas, and instead of saying, oh, I damaged the canvas, I wonder what to do now, and coming up with a creative solution, you might have damaged the canvas and said, oh, I damaged the canvas again. I am a horrible painter. I am a horrible person. I don't have any creative talent. I feel like I'm picking on you. You know this is not true, right? Yeah, but you all know what I mean. Like you could make a mistake and instead of saying, I made that mistake, like I forgot that Nancy gave the flowers today and I promised her last week I would say something. I could have said, oh, I'm a terrible minister. I could wear that at the core of my being and say, if I can't even remember Phil, who was such a love, how can I go about doing my work in my day? I have such shame on this that I become immobilized. I become non-functioning. There's a difference there. One thing where I say, I made a mistake. There's probably a way to correct this. I'm going to try apologizing. I'm going to try something creative or adaptive. That is led more by guilt than by shame. Guilt is still not great, but if you feel guilty about something, that's an internal thing, right? Like I feel guilty. It's not coming from another place. Nobody's standing outside of me condemning me. Nancy, you're not condemning me, are you? Just wanted to check and make sure. So I have a chance to correct that, to make amends, to move forward. Shame, on the other hand, is immobilizing. Guilt is an internal perspective, a tool that we can use to help ourselves live into our better aspirations. Where shame is somewhat dependent on the person outside of you, right? Like I am very sorry I did not get my dog to the vet the day he started scratching. But had it been my regular vet, I would have not left feeling ashamed. I invested that veterinarian with the power to shame me, right? Had somebody walking down the street said, your dog is ugly, I would not have cared. And they would be lying. But I gave some power to this veterinarian and I felt the shame that came my way. Guilt can be a net positive if we use it, if we recognize it, claim it, and use it to our advantage to help us become the people we want to be. Does that make sense? Did That also means you have to let go of it fairly quickly. Shame sticks, and it's ugly, and it doesn't let you go. If, as we just sang, we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love, there is no place here for a shame that is sticky and that will not let us go. The only thing that should hold on to you that way is the power of love and community and the call to be in beloved community. Okay, I'm gonna ask this. I know we're in church, but how many of you have felt shame coming at you from some religious order? I was expecting 100%. I only got about 70. So religion has had a lot to do with shame. It's a big source of shame. Sometimes in seminary, I thought they would be, I went to a Disciples of Christ seminary and I loved it. And there were a lot of times where I thought that they were right. If they had just stopped talking sooner, we would have been much better off. So they would say things like, God loves everyone. And I'd be like, yay, stop talking now. But they didn't. They kept going to say, God loves everyone in spite of the fact that we are miserable little sinners and no better than worms, which I think the worms deserve better, but that's another story. You can apply this to Eve. And as the bringer of, y'all know how that story can sometimes be interpreted? Used to have a bumper sticker that said Eve was framed. Yeah. How about this one? Wave at me or put a note in chat or a thumbs up. Have you ever heard, hate the sin, but love the sinner? Have you ever felt the passive aggressive shaming power of that love? Religion has too often used shame to create and belittle other, right? Love the sin, or love the sinner and hate the sin, has been used to address the LGBTQ community. The othering that religions do too often when they draw lines and say, we are inside of this line and we are beloved and you are outside the line. And not only are you doing wrong, but you are wrong by the nature of your being, right? I mentioned Midnight Mass. One of the radical things about Midnight Mass is that it includes a Muslim character who is the good guy. Why is that radical? Why is that radical? I don't think that we can really live and move as faithful people in this society without having some awareness of the shame that is part of our culture. So today I'm asking us to name it and to set it aside, to say this is what we have come with in our culture to this point, but that we don't have to be shameful people at all. I moved in circles where that love the sinner, hate the sin was all too common. So there was Fall Festival the other day, or yesterday in Wyoming, and they had a petting zoo with goats, and we took the dog down there. I told you the dog is the love of my life. And he's okay with sheep, but he's not okay with goats. He doesn't like them. And I kind of thought if that might be a response to the biblical passage where Jesus separates the sheep from the goats, you know? I tell you this to say that don't think that we are not capable of doing the same othering that other people do, which I think I just othered other people and say making that sentence. We always need a good dose of humility, and we need to be able to face shame, because without being able to face shame, we won't be able to do any of the hard work we are called to do. We have to be able to face shame if we are to face the depths of dysfunction in our society that has created and sustained systemic racism. If you think about what's going on in Texas with abortion laws right now, you can't get there if you don't have a culture that shames women. Shame is infectious and persistent and has no place here. Wouldn't it be nice if all the theologians had just stopped talking once they said God loves everyone? God loves everyone. Stop. Hard stop. Well, I am here to tell you that there are theologians who did just that. They stood up and they said, and they read the Bible and they did their homework and they said, you know what? God loves everyone. Hard stop. The end. No more to say. They were called universalists, and they proclaimed that the nature creator is to love creation, and they said that love is patient and kind, and love is not envious or boastful. That love does not insist on its own way, it is not irritable or resentful. It bears all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. For those who say God is love, I recommend 1 Corinthians verse 13, 4-7. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We, here at St. John's, we stand in the line of those who reject the big damnation of hell and the insidious damnation of loving the sinner but hating the sin. I am not here to change you, really. The point of this congregation, the point of this tradition is not to make you be better. It's not to make you do what's right. It's not to shame you into, and then you can fill in the list, right? What would go on that list? Okay, the way of the world might say, oh, I went to a fancy thing and I had to go buy a dress and I'm a size 16. If you think that's not shame-inducing in this culture, you realize how silly that is, that there should be any shame associated with the size of our bodies? What about mask wearing? I have a very good friend who is very lovely and very sweet and very nice, who lost her mind in Home Depot and went off on a guy for not wearing a mask. I'm not really sure that he invested her with the power to shame him, but she sure tried to shame him. And she said, Mitra, I don't know what I was thinking. She said, I don't know what got the better of her was the stress of this moment. What got the better of her was the anxiety of this time, but it got the better of her because she knows that that person in Home Depot is a beloved child of God. And she knows that she is not the arbiter of their actions or their well-being. And she went there. And she didn't have a chance to apologize because it was very anonymous. On the other hand, I seriously doubt that he cared. Well, he might have cared. I should not downplay that. She had, at the end of the day, some feeling for him, as if to say, I feel like I didn't treat him like a human being should be treated. She had some empathy for him. If you are out there and you have heard Brene Brown talk about shame and vulnerability. Any of you Brene Brown fans? Yeah, there's some hands. She's fabulous. She's wonderful. I love what she says. She says that empathy is the antidote to shame. In our culture, there are a million different ways that we can be shamed and blamed. In our church, I'm offering something different. In this place, I offer grace and grace and grace again. Because think about it this way. If we say that God is love, Okay, I know a lot of us say that God isn't anything, but if you bear with me and we say that God is love, and we say that there is the light of God in every person, then there is the light of love in every person. If we say that it is the nature of Creator to love creation and to be able to extend that grace again and again and again, then you and I and us together, we have the power to extend that grace again and again and again. The question becomes, what is keeping us from doing it? What is keeping us hemmed in, keeping our vision narrow, keeping our actions limited? If we can shake off the shame that binds us, too much of that shame has come from the religious tradition. If we can shake off the shame that binds us and declare our worth and our beauty, we can extend that to all we meet. Am I making sense? If we can extend that to all we meet, they might be able to extend it further. If we could go into the world with grace and grace and grace again. I don't even know what grace means. I had this conversation with my kid when she was like 5. She was talking about grace. I thought we were having a theological discussion. She was talking about the little blonde girl at her Montessori school. When I watch Peng Chang play, there's grace in his playing. If Mira were here, she would be dancing with her hands along. There is grace in the dance. There are social graces, but here in this place, I want to use grace to say that grace extends unbidden, unwarranted, before you hear the story of the other person. Grace extends love and love again. I like to think that grace is love mixed with delight and wonder of creation and a healthy dash of forgiveness. It has to be mixed with a little bit of humor, right? Because life, come on. Lizards, Rob said, lizards. The lizard came to church today. Grace and love are never truly alive as long as they are static. They are not alive until they are given away. That's challenging. What does that mean? Does that mean that you are not alive if you are not loving, if you are not giving away grace? If you think about a time when you're like really, really depressed, think about a time when it's like hard to get out of bed or hard to function or motor. Am I the only one who has these times? Tell me I'm not the only one who has these times. When I am feeling that way, the last thing I want to do is to extend grace to anyone else, right? And when you start, I'm not sure if this is a cart before the horse thing, but when you can extend grace and love to other people, it comes back and is refueling. We are standing in a tradition that says that each and every person, everywhere, every time, was, is, and will be beloved of creation. We don't even have to worry about what the nature of that creation is. It might be a personified God. It might be a God that is not personified. It might be the force that calls the universe forward. It doesn't matter, because what matters is that when you look around this place, and friends on Zoom, please stay for coffee hour and spend some time talking to each other. Because when you look into each other's eyes, when you have that recognition of your fellow humanity, you will know in your bones that there is worth and dignity, there is love and grace aplenty. We have the power to love one another, and we have the power to refrain from shaming or being shamed. We have the power to extend grace. Love does not rejoice in the wrong that is brought to us through traditions and through a culture that would separate, divide, and put down. Love does not rejoice in those wrongs, but love delights in the truth that each and all of us are beloved and beautiful. like to invite the singers to come forward for the closing song, How Could Anyone? As they are gathering up, let me ask you, have you known that shame in the religious tradition? I would like to know, like genuinely, I would like to know what we can do to help heal from that shame, and then to start moving in that direction. Actually, I think we already are moving in that direction. But I think our essence as this church, as these people, our essence is to affirm the goodness of all people. This is hymn number 1053, and it is a true thing worth delighting in. For any who would tell you that you are less for any who would tell you that you are less than whole, don't give them the power. You are whole, you are beautiful, you are good, you are holy, and it is good to be in your company. Our closing words are from Nancy Wood. She writes, hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even if it is a tree which stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even if it is a long way from here. Hold on to life, even if it is easier letting go. Hold on to my hand, even when I have gone away from you. My friends, this concludes our service, but it's just the beginning of new relationships. I invite you to stay after the conversation outside if it's not raining, to sign up for Walk Out of Darkness, to join in the online coffee hour. Together we create a new place and a new way of being, and we do it every time we gather. Thank you to the singers. Thank you to those who helped by the masks. And go in peace. I will see you soon. Yeah. Thank you.